Alright, I'm going to go a bit of a different route with this video, I think, from what I've done most recently anyway. But I think I've noticed the last week or two, maybe more, on and off, I've noticed how I think it's fair to say, one of the best ways to describe it probably, simply put, is I feel kind of out of it. The interesting thing about this path is that once you go down this road, there might not be any coming back. Like, for a while, I'll just, like for example, on a Sunday, I'll be in church service, and I'll just kind of, my mind will be just kind of wandering all over the place. This probably isn't uncommon for people, but like a lot of things might face you in a given day, or you might encounter a lot of different things in a given day. One of the things that comes and goes in terms of, I don't know if the correct way to say it, the best way to say it is maybe looming over me, is it's this not feeling great about current circumstances, right? So what I mean, for this example, it's that career-wise, I'm not in a place that I'm ecstatic about. I'm not where I would like to be. And for anybody out there, like, there's probably lots of people that can relate. But how many people have had an experience of where you've kind of, to a certain degree, done all the right things, right? Like, let's say that you went to school, like, elementary and high school. You got, fairly good grades. Like, my grades weren't like great in every class in high school, but at times I got probably grades that were not so good, and some grades were better. Like, probably on average, the grades were probably fairly okay, or maybe in some cases pretty good. And then getting to college, you go through college. How many people go through a post-secondary experience? I went for a 3-year advanced diploma, and COVID happened, and so that happened in my last year of college. I actually started in my second year, but I got out of college and it was still like COVID times, quarantine and all that stuff, or varying stages of quarantine. It was a wild time. And things were kind of always changing from week to week or month to month, maybe, depending on what time of COVID you were in. Like, because in Canada, it was not great in terms of just kind of like going through it, maybe looking back on it. Not the best of times in terms of like personal freedom or anything like that, or just the feeling of liberty and freedom in your own country. It was a very different time. I'll just put it that way. And so then after that, and during that time, like there was a period of time for, maybe it was about a year, where where I was trying to get hired in my field at the time, the field that I was pursuing at the time, and I'm just going to make guesses and estimates here for some of this stuff, but I might have sent out, let's say, somewhere around 200-ish job applications, to which you maybe only get an email response back, like, other than the automated "thank you for applying, blah blah blah, we'll let you know if we decide to take you, we'll get back to you," whatever the generic immediate kind of response email that gets just kind of maybe auto sent out or whatever. But of those applications that I sent out, how many do you get a reply on? Let's say around 50% you get an email response back, other than the like kind of auto send one. Let's say in some cases maybe you get, maybe 50 to 70% of the time you get a response back, however many days or weeks later. And about 99%, 95 to 99% of the time, it's probably essentially saying thanks but no thanks. Like, they say it in more words and maybe a bit more specific and less like it's just, corporate speak or whatever you want to call it. But essentially it's a no, right? And then there was maybe 1 to 3 times where it was like, let's proceed further. One of the times might have been a scam job offer, because like I got advanced to the next stage where they wanted me to do like this kind of like set of projects, or 3 projects or whatever. It was for like 3D modeling, and I think it was three things to submit. And then after that point, I don't know that I ever heard back, or if I did hear back, like, and I asked about it, they might have said something more generic, like, we'll get back to you, or we're looking through it, or something, that wasn't a whole lot of substance, or anything concrete about any kind of hiring, And then there was one opportunity that might have panned out, but I just missed it. It just slipped through my fingers, kind of thing. But it was a learning experience. And but anyway, and so then now I've kind of gone through a phase of change, in the sense of I'm not going in that career field direction anymore. Now I'm going more into kind of media and video, right? Like video media stuff, whether it's like camera work, editing, things like that. That's more of the current goal, and that might be what I feel called to do. And a lot of this comes down to like discernment, and I don't always necessarily, I don't always know what the will of God is. If anything, like, there might be a lot of times, like on a personal level, where I'm just kind of not sure, but maybe I'm hopeful, or maybe hopefully I'm kind of on the right track, but specific details maybe you're not always certain of. But anyway, so I'm currently working just like a normal job. It's not really 9 to 5. It kind of varies in its time frame, but it's 5 days a week, and it's not like major pay or anything, but it is a job, and it's good to have a job, and it's a job that's reasonably enjoyable. Lots of driving, lots of kind of open time to listen to podcasts and stuff like that, or any kind of audio stuff and stuff and etc. Right? So there's good elements to it, and you get to interact with a lot of people, and so that's good. And I still get to live at home during this time, so it's not crazy pressure from bills or anything, like as if I would like as it would be if I was out renting some apartment somewhere, especially in a city. It'd probably be kind of rough, right? But at home, it's a way better situation living at home. So that's just a little bit of transparency there. But pertaining to where I'm at now, it's like you go through these phases and seasons where you're kind of, like, for myself, like from a Christian perspective, it's like maybe prayerfully asking, what's the direction, and all these things, what do you do, where do you go, what are you meant to do, and it's tough, because in the current economic situation, you don't necessarily, like, it can look a little bit bleak when at least as far as the vibe goes or perception goes, it seems like it's kind of tough to have a reasonable standard of living on a basic job. You kind of need to be in that higher earning job category to have a more comfortable life, or be able to, in some cases, maybe just break into what is considered normal life, right? Like, so like trying to own a home, start a family, do all this stuff, right? Move, whatever. Afford things, or afford things of any reasonable level of substantial cost. And when you go through this time, like for me, I would probably consider it about, because 2021, let's say 2021 of September is when I kind of somewhere around that point is when I started to a bit more actively try to get a job in the field that I wanted at the time. And like I said, that's kind of changed over time. So now where it's at is like different field, still like I'm kind of at the I'm in the position where it's like, do I do my own thing or do I work for somebody? I'm kind of to some level open to both, but it depends, because like it's this whole, like, I know it might be kind of a cliche of the whole meaningful work thing. That might be like some millennial term or something like that. But at the end of the day, at least for me, I'm the kind of person that I want to ideally love what I do, but I want it to be something that is at least reasonably creative, and at the very least I want to do work that I don't feel is like soul-sucking, because, like, for example, say you want to work in media and video. It's like, I would like to not work for some woke brand doing something that I don't really support or don't really vibe with or whatever. Like, I don't really want to do that. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, are some things just not worth the money? And it's not even that I've been offered any kind of crazy money. Like, I haven't been in that scenario where somebody's like, we'll pay you $1 million to do this, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, that hasn't even happened. But it's just like, I don't want to just, like, because it's another thing, like, when this happened fairly recently. Like, I went back on LinkedIn to go apply for some more jobs. I hadn't applied for some jobs in a while. It's kind of maybe just on a personal level, maybe just kind of waiting on God for a direction or for an answer or something like that, or waiting to kind of maybe, I don't know, I'm trying to maybe just kind of figure out, this current season in life, maybe you could say that. And so anyway, when I went back onto LinkedIn recently to, apply for some more jobs, there was a certain feeling I got when I went back on and I was looking at stuff, and in light of all that I've learned, and when I was watching this one video and on YouTube a while ago, or listening to it, whatever, and they were talking about LinkedIn stuff, and it wasn't, giving LinkedIn a super great vibe at the time. I've been on LinkedIn for a while, but anyway, it's like, with all the stuff, swirling around in my mind, whatever, and trying to, or getting back onto LinkedIn to go and maybe apply for some more jobs in like video or video editing or something like that. And at some point within the first, let's say 5 to 30 minutes of going through that process, I don't know if the feeling was soul sucking, or if the feeling was like dread or something. Like, it just kind of like, like that kind of feeling. Like, it just, not a great feeling kind of presented itself, because it's like, when you're looking at some of these jobs or whatever, and it's like, at least I didn't look at a whole lot. I only looked at a few at the time, so fair enough. Like, I could have maybe found other ones that were, great, and would have given me a way better feeling than this kind of dread or whatever. But just in terms of just how the event played out, I'm just going to tell you kind of roughly how it happened. When you like read through these jobs, and it's kind of like this brand that maybe feels super corporate, or this company that feels super corporate, and it's like, either it's a job that's like more responsibility than I would want, and I feel that if I got it, I might fail in the capacity, like remote job, managing a team, and all this stuff with the video editing workflow and all this stuff. It's like more than I would want right now in the first place, and like, I don't want to get a job like that just to fail in the position. Not necessarily that I would, but it's like, I'd like to just get something that's just kind of some level of entry level, like not crazy pressure, like where you're managing a team, but you're just another editor, or you're just doing some work for somebody, like something that's a bit more reasonable, to start out, right? Like, whether it's a junior role or an intermediate, whatever kind of role, something like that. But the idea of being presented with these jobs that you could apply for, but for companies that it doesn't really provide that spark, or that doesn't really get you too eager, and it almost kind of feels like, if I were to apply for more jobs like that, it's like, if I had to write a cover letter, I almost think that as an excuse to, I don't know if it would be in an effort to be more honest, or to give myself an out on some sort of weird personal mental level, if they asked me to write a cover letter to a job that I just was not ecstatic about, I almost feel like I would just say something like, I do video, or something like that. I actually think I did write that for one of them, because I didn't want to give like the old response that I had pre-written down or auto-saved, or whatever LinkedIn does to save previous responses like that, because that response talked more about like the game development, 3D art side of things. And so it's like, because if I just say to this cover letter, or if I just write in this cover letter, this whatever box, if I just write I do video and then I don't get the job, it's like, okay, well, I could say to myself, at least I tried. But at the same time, you're only really kidding yourself in that kind of process, and it's like, why are you even doing it if that's like your attitude towards it? And I guess it's like, on a personal level, maybe we feel we need to feel like we're at least doing something productive by applying for the job, but being so passive about it, or honest, or true to ourselves, whatever word best describes it, about it, that we could say, well, we tried, but they just didn't want to take us, and so then you could like kind of, it's like this weird kind of fake, I don't know, it's like you're only kidding yourself kind of productivity. Like you could feel like you at least did something, so you could feel good about that, but it's not necessarily the best something that you could have done. But at the same time, I don't want to like lie on a cover letter for a job that I'm not ecstatic about and be like, oh, I'm just so thrilled to work here and contribute to the team and be part of this great thing or whatever. I wouldn't necessarily even use all those kinds of words, but it's like, I'm not gonna be honestly talking about a position at a job that I'm not ecstatic about, like I would talk about a job at some company that I am thrilled about. It's just like, if you're being honest and not just like being kind of like synthetic about your writing, if you're really being honest about it, it's like, your level of engagement might vary depending on what the job and company is, and if they kind of vibe with your morals or your mission or your values in life or whatever. And so it's just kind of like, it's easy in the day-to-day, sometimes to have things come to mind, whether it's during a time of prayer or whether it's just comes to my mind at some point in the day. However it happens to me, however it's happened in the past, I might not be portraying this all 100% accurately, but essentially this line has come to mind before, where it's like, am I ever going to make it out of here? Or something along the lines of like, in somebody's life, are things ever going to change? Because it once you pass a certain threshold, because in your mind you have these maybe kind of preconceived ideas of your timeline for success, right? Like, you think like within a year, you're going to get a job in your field and be doing what you want to do. And it's like, since like roughly end of 2021, I've been trying to get a job in whatever field I've been pursuing at the time, right? Like I've said, or basically what I've been saying is like, that's changed over time, different kind of main field pursuit now, but regardless, been trying to get a job in something of my related fields, and nothing's really panned out long term. And even for video editing stuff, I've done some work, but it's been like really short things. Like it's been like the odd because like I do like freelance stuff too, so it's been like the odd freelance gig here and there, like maybe a few edits for this guy, a couple edits for that girl, stuff like that, or that lady rather. And it's essentially like you got the odd jobs, but there's nothing really that has panned out long term on a consistent basis, and definitely nothing that's allowed me to quit my day job, which is like, for this kind of content on YouTube, it's probably a lot of it is around quitting your day job, right? I haven't gotten there yet. Hopefully soon, because like the longer like this timeline goes, because what's that roughly like, let's just say, take out the few months of 2021, just go from the beginning of 2022 for the sake of simpler math. So in your mind, add 2 or 3 months or whatever, or 4 months to this count, but 2022 to 2023, 2023 to 2024, 2024 to 2025. So that's 3 years, and let's say roughly 4 months, maybe a little bit less. Or actually, no, it'd be maybe a little bit more, because we're in the 4th month of 2025. So, you got like 3+ years, maybe 3.5 years, if I'm remembering the math or doing the math correctly. And, at sometimes things might look a little bleak or feel a little bit bleak. It might feel a little bit hard to get, it might feel a little bit hard to be positive, and you might get a bit aggravated or frustrated. I've definitely had times like that, because it's just not really panning out the way that you thought. And what especially can make it difficult is if you're in a position in life. This might apply to a variety of people, where you went to school with a certain group of friends, and then you guys, say some of you go straight to work after high school, or say some of you guys go to post-secondary, but like you guys all start moving out into like adult life. And when you see the people that you either went to school with or hung around with or at least knew during that earlier phase of life, and then now you see them moving on, you see them getting careers, having kids, starting families of their own, moving away, maybe buying a home, stuff like that. And then if you are still more or less stuck in a similar situation, or maybe roughly the same situation that you were in when you were in high school or finished high school or finished post-secondary, whatever, roughly, like from whatever point that adulting started, you're roughly in a similar place to that point now, when all the other people, at least, or a portion, let's just say not even all of them, just let's say half of them or a portion of them have moved on and moved forward in life. And maybe you either feel like there's this term like left behind. Say you feel left behind, or say you feel like, for me, I think maybe what is a better descriptive word is I've felt stuck, like saying I feel stuck, because I think that it's kind of been like, like imagine the mental image of like spinning your tires, like your vehicle's stuck in the mud or in the snow or whatever, and you're just spinning your tires, you're not getting anywhere, you're revving the engine, just spinning your tires. I have grown more accustomed to understanding what that's like. And it's tough because like in other people's lives that I know, it's like they've chosen different career paths that to some degree might be like to varying levels, because each career path might have its difficulties and benefits, right? But it's fair to say that at least probably many of the people that I've known that have like fit this this concept of people moving forward in life have chosen career paths that are probably more accessible, whether it's like in a more blue collar type work or line of work, or whether it's something that maybe they went to post-secondary school for, but it's something that is probably more easily hireable for. Whereas to be hired as like a videographer, a video editor, or something in the more of like the media or arts side of things can probably be a bit more niche or more of a challenge, at least depending on where you live. Because I'm in like a more smaller community, so on a local level, the opportunities just aren't really the same at all compared to like Toronto or other cities, right? So like there's difficulties to that. Now at the same time, we're in a online age, right? The internet can present a lot of opportunities, but at the same time, like, because I was watching, and this is the video I was talking about earlier, like when I was talking about the LinkedIn stuff, I was watching this reaction video that Asmongold did on something about applying for jobs, or something related to that topic. He was reacting to this video that a guy made on, trying to find a good job. It might have been something like most of the jobs suck or something like that. I don't remember exactly, but anyway. But essentially one of the things that the internet also presents as a bit of a hurdle or a drawback compared to maybe job search availability, or having job searching as easy in the modern online context. One of the difficulties that the online job market kind of presents is that you are potentially competing against the world for a job in a given field, right? So if you're like, say you're a video editor and you're applying for this job at this one company, and let's say that it's a remote position, is it possible that you might be competing against somebody who is in India or China or the UK, anywhere around the world for that remote position? Is that a possibility? And also, like, what are the requirements of that job? Are those requirements reasonable? That's something that the video kind of got into as well, talking about how the level of expectation was kind of ridiculous for what the pay of the job was and what the required experience for the job was, or something like that. I could be a little bit wrong on the details here. But yeah, essentially, like, it can be possibly kind of rough out there to break in to any of these more different industries. Niche might not be the word, maybe it is the word, but to break into these other kinds of industries, these more creative industries or whatever. And then in addition to the whole online ecosystem and competing against maybe the global economy for a given position, if it is a remote position, but even maybe if it's for something where you're willing to relocate, maybe even in that case you still might be competing against some people from around the world for that position. I'm just kind of making an assumption here. But you also have the introduction of AI into all of this as well, which has been more developing over time, where now it's like, does a company need to hire even less people than before as a result of the efficiencies that AI brings? Does this, as a result, possibly make it harder for you to get a job in that field because maybe there's less jobs available now because of that? Or eventually will those jobs more or less disappear due to AI technology advancing? Some of that could be speculation, some of that could be safe assumption. Time may tell. But I think two things that I've maybe realized better now that are possibly at least more essential to having success in a given career path is to do cool stuff and get to know cool people or good people, or just essentially make good contacts or good connections. So the second one, so the do cool stuff is more of an Alex Hormozy saying, or part of one of his sayings that he might have said. I think he more talks about do stuff and then talk about the stuff you did. I think that's roughly an Alex Hormozy quote, roughly. But the second thing, which is like get to know people or make good connections or whatever, that's kind of based off of something that Sam Hyde said, where I think he was talking about in one, I was watching something by The New Pill Second Dose, and it was kind of like compilations of different Sam Hyde clips or other clips from people that he's kind of in the friend group of, or they kind of collaborate, whatever. They know each other, I think, essentially. But one of the clips that I was watching, Sam, I think I'm going to roughly paraphrase or quote what Sam said, but essentially he said that much of your success, I don't know if he said much of your success in your career is based on how well you could play with others. I don't know if that's exactly what he said, but I think he was kind of maybe talking about how, like, you know, the saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. I don't know if he was saying it exactly like that, but he was kind of saying, like, a lot of the success hinges on the social aspect of the work environment, and maybe essentially being likable or enjoyable to work with, and that helping your success. And maybe my extrapolation from that to some degree is networking, because if you are known by people and you're on good terms with them and they like you, it's a safe assumption that they'd be more likely to hire you if you have skills in that field than somebody else who has skills in that field who they don't know at all, right? So like if there's some stranger that comes and applies for the same job at that company, and then you go and apply for that same job at the company, if both of you as applicants have skills, but you're the only guy that's like known by that company or on good terms with that company or friends with people at that company, then will that give you an edge? And maybe, who knows, is it possible that even just knowing people in a given company or whatever might just maybe increase like spontaneous chances of being offered a job, maybe a job that they otherwise weren't even going to make, but they wanted to hire you, so they created a new role so that they could hire you, or they just added another person of that role to the teams, like, or they added an extra role for you to fill on that team. Like, it's kind of a theoretical scenario, but is that possible that could occur? Maybe. I don't know for certain, but don't necessarily rule it out per se, but also don't necessarily depend on it either. But yeah, like, for me, I want to work at a place that I like to work at. That's probably true for most people. But it's funny because it almost feels like there's this vibe where it's like, maybe it goes from the saying you can't have your cake and eat it too, where it's like you can't get a job that both pays well and is enjoyable. I don't know if anybody says that, but does it feel like that's what we subconsciously, most of us think is the case? Hopefully it's not the case, because why can't we do something we enjoy and be successful at the same time? And maybe a lot of this conversation gets down to like, what are your goals in life and what do you want to do, right? And what more importantly, what are you called to do in this life? And that gets more into like the faith and belief system aspect. And now you're talking about like, what's God's plan for you, right? And even when I make YouTube videos, even like this one, the constant inner push and pull in myself is kind of like, you want to make videos and you want to get views so then you can make money off the videos, so then you could have like some financial gain and I guess the freedom or stuff that comes with increasing your finances. But at the same time, like, it can become a super business-minded mentality in the sense that it becomes like robotic or synthetic or lacking a genuine nature, because if you're only trying to make stuff because it'll get views and you don't have any passion or whatever, or at least not a lot attached to the thing, then what are you doing? What's it about? And this is a problem I have, where it's like, what I should care more about, and I think I've said this or thought this to myself before, where it's like, it should be more about what will help rather than what will make money or what will get views. But those things are to some degree attached, because if nobody sees the video, then it won't help anybody. But at the same time, if you're like, oh, well, I want to get as many views as possible, and that's the main thing that you think about, then are you actually making the video because you want to help people, or are you just making the video because you want to make money? And if I'm honest, it's like, I would like to make dollars doing this, but if it helps people, then that's pretty great too. That would be like a win-win scenario. If you could make money and also give people some good help, then isn't that like the best of both? The trouble is that if you're ever in a state where you're kind of financially desperate, not necessarily that you're like on the street or anything, but if you're just in a low income bracket and you don't see a whole lot of optimism in that area or spot that you're at right now, it can be easy to kind of get desperate and be driven by desperation because you're just trying to make it out. And as a result, that could maybe possibly mess with your head and your intentions toward what you do, how you do it, what you're doing, So it's a tough thing, because it's like, if you already had all the money you needed, not even necessarily all the money you wanted, but just if you had enough money where you could live like a comfortable life, like it was a good standard of living. So in Canada, the median income is like around $67,000 a year. It's slightly more than $67,000 a year, I think. And that's not even what most people make. I think 70% of full-time workers, I think, make less than that, which just kind of shows like the income disparity spread or whatever, or how median numbers are calculated, as far as I understand or assume, or whatever word fits that best. Let's say you were making the roughly 67,000 Canadian dollars a year if you lived in Canada, and you were like at a spot where you're like, you know what, I'm good, I got enough money to be able to afford things, a car, a house, whatever you need, like food, like you're not struggling, but you're doing all right. If you're in a position like that, then maybe it's a bit easier to make things like YouTube videos just because you want to, or just because you want to help people. Not necessarily, you might not even care about the money, because if your needs are met, then you might not be in kind of a desperate state of wanting to make dollars off of it, so you might not care if it makes dollars or not, right? And at the end of the day, all of my basic needs are met in my current living situation, right? It's just that if you don't see the ability to get on to a new season of life where things change in their context, like where you're out there with your own home, on your own, living life, you know what I mean? Like that next phase, if you're not in a feasible enough position financially or whatever to get to that next phase, then it could be tough, because all of your basic needs could be met, like food, water, shelter. But if you don't have enough to advance to kind of the next phase, it could be understandable that things might feel like they kind of suck. But maybe it's also for for a purpose. And for me, it's like maybe it's a season of like building patience. Maybe it's a season of like discerning or development on a personal level in some kind of way. Maybe it's about waiting on God. Because like, what is the will of God in your life, in my life, in all of our lives? And so it can be easier said than done. It can be tough to go through the process, but we may simply all have to go through it. And so if I were to focus more in the ending of this video on what will help, right? Because like I am in that situation where like I will probably often think about what will get views and make dollars rather than what will help. But I'm going to focus for a second on the what will help part. And so it might sound a bit cliche, but like the only way you can fail within reason, other than like dying or something, but more or less to varying degrees, the only way you can fail is if you give up. Is that fair to say? It's kind of a cliche, and I mean like there probably are other ways that you could fail other than giving up, but like aside from like major outliers here, for the most part it's probably dependent on whether you give up or stick with it. So if you're pursuing what God has called you to do with your life, then like as long as you keep pursuing it and you don't stop, then by default are your chances of success increased. Because if you stopped altogether, then wouldn't your chances of success be radically decreased? We're just kind of trying to, I'm trying to say this in the most kind of reasonable, realistic, not really super hyperbolic kind of way, because a lot of people might just say these things and talk in absolutes all the time. But if we're honest with ourselves, life has a lot of nuance to different things, or gray areas on things that could happen in life, right? But one of the things that I put at the end of a couple of my videos is don't give up. And it's interesting because sometimes when you're making an edit or you're doing something, you might put it there. Like at least the first time I did it, I may have just been thinking about putting it there for other people. But then if I watch the video back and I see the don't give up and say I remember that, if I remember that ending frame or that ending part of the video where it says don't give up, maybe that also benefits me too. Maybe I have to some degree made a reminder to myself, or made something that reminds myself of that, the don't give up part. So maybe I'll put it at the end of this video too. But yeah, so essentially it's like I'm kind of bad at wrapping up videos quickly. I kind of tend to ramble because maybe you don't know how to end a video. Like me, I don't necessarily know how to end a video sometimes, so I just kind of ramble on. So I will attempt to end it. In this life, there can be many hardships, but can there also be much joy? By the grace of God, may we carry on. Thank you all for your time, and I'll end on one of the most important notes that I could ever end on, which is believe on the Lord Jesus Christ. Thanks for watching.